everybody. It's Mary Sheila, and welcome. I'm really excited today to have my friend Meredith Vaish, who is a speaker, writer, a retreat designer, and founder of Pausebox, which is something we're going to talk about today. And she is a friend of mine and a former client, and she has just stepped up and created this whole new business. But ultimately, she's talking about pause and going from busyness to breakthrough with an intentional pause. So we're hopefully going to give you some good tools around what is a pause, how can you break through in your life? Because honestly, we're all on a giant pause right now. And how are we going to come out on the other side? So welcome, Meredith.
Yes, thank you. Well, that's the $1,000,000 question. That's the one I'm sitting with all the time. Yeah, thanks for having me. I was thinking about where to start because the world has changed so much. And I guess what I'd like to start is kind of just a little bit about why I'm probably the least likely spokesperson for pause. I am not your standard pause kind of personality. I am type A. I grew up in a big corporate job. I live in the Bay Area. I'm married to a tech exec. Like the notion of pausing for me was never on my radar. I was definitely raised with a get it done. If you don't do it, no one will. Kind of constant effort, proving success. So that's my background. And then quite literally 2 years ago, my body broke. I was working at a project at work, and it was a really exciting technology project, and I was throwing myself into it. And I was working around the clock because there were consultants involved, and consultants always work around the clock. And I didn't take care of myself at all. And but I was so dedicated to getting it done right and being helpful and being on it. And my entire right side of my body, my neck and my shoulder and my right arm all went numb. And I was forced to pause. And I really didn't want to because I felt like people were going to think I'm lazy or I'm a crybaby or, just buck up. Let's get back in the saddle. Let's go. So that kind of incessant societal expectation to keep going really broke me. And it was part of dealing with what came next that really informed why I do this work now. Yeah, it brings up a lot.
When you think about that, the whole right side, that's our masculine side. And there you were in like corporate America.
Yeah. Oh my God, that gives me chills because yes, I was putting on my very male, fixing, focusing, striving. My sight was this narrow, and I was just go getter. It was not reflective. It was not receptive. It was all proving energy. And what happened thank God my employer had a beautiful disability program, and they put me in touch with all these healers. And I met an acupuncturist, and I had never done acupuncture. And, she sees 1 million of me a day because it's Silicon Valley. And so she's giving me an exam and carpal tunnel, right? Standard. This is a standard thing we see in the Valley. And she had me lay down, face down on a table, and she put the needles in. And I thought, oh, that's going to be the hard part. It's the needles. No. She put the needles in. And then she turned up the heat and she said, I'm just going to leave you alone for 20 minutes and then I'll come back. And I was like, okay. So she slowly, closes the door. And I, for the first time, am alone with my thoughts, with my feelings. And I just, watershed, like major tears, sobs, grief, exhaustion, relief, just this, I think it was a full body intervention.
Yeah.
Like, and it was terrifying because I had to reconcile how I had treated my body, my mind, my spirit, and how I had broken myself. So that was the wake up call for me. And from there, I realized I couldn't heal in a corporate cubicle culture. It was I didn't have the skills or the desire anymore to keep hurting and going. So I devised a way to take a soul batical, is what I'm
Nice.
calling it. Yeah. And it was a year where I would figure out what I was going to do with my life. And, I've always have a marketing background, and I've always been rather um, entrepreneurial. I love new ideas. I'm rather inventive. And so I took this time, and what was beautiful was I gave myself permission, and I kind of had to because I had to heal, but I would take naps and I would take long walks with my dog. And thankfully, at the time, my kids would go to school where they're not right now. But at the time, I could, off they went, and I didn't have to mother them, take care of them, nurture them, and I could just put all that energy into my own healing process. So from there, I mean, it was a long time of just exploring and listening and really starting to get present to, you have these nudges that if you pay attention to them, they serve you well.
Yes.
And if you override them, then you get into trouble. So I had a chance to just tune into what those little impulses, like, do this now, don't do this now. This looks fun, this doesn't look fun. Like, it was truly sensory, and it helped me tune into that inner guidance that's always leading you down a path of kind of least resistance if you're able to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Our gut instincts, and that's where, as a nutritionist, I'm so, committed to all healing really starts from the gut and with what we're putting
Yes.
into our body and how we're nourishing ourselves. And even in that fast-paced world, even when we go to nourish ourselves, we have to get out of that fight or flight and back into our
Yes.
rest and digest to calm and then actually nourish ourselves.
Yes. Well, I love that you use the word nourish, because that was the word I used as my intention for this space. And I used that word for maybe at least a year and a half, and it was front and center. So I actually subscribed to a meal kit so that I could make meals at home, because as a vegetarian in my home, I would kind of get like the least leftovery thing, because the true meals were for the meat eaters, and that was fine. People loved meat, but I was living off of boiled cauliflower. Like, it wasn't nourishing at all as far as my palate. It wasn't interesting as far as flavors. So anyway, I had this subscription to a meal kit, and all of a sudden, number one, putting myself on the list was huge. Like, I'm the only one that's eating these vegetarian options. So that was one thing I had to overcome, is like, do I deserve to be on the list? Two, there was expense involved. So I was like, ooh, do I deserve it? But then just taking the time, and oh my gosh, it was I love cooking. I didn't realize I loved cooking so much. And obviously I love working with you and having you help me understand how to nourish my body in all different ways. So that was a huge, huge deal for me.
Yeah. And then you went from maybe nourishment to then pause, huh?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think it was, I hadn't thought of that. It's kind of the path to pause is through nourishing yourself. And I think one of the things we can do right now, if we have the lucky kind of privilege of having access to really good food and ingredients, and sunshine in our yards, and we can still walk. I don't have to wear a mask when I walk. Not, at least I don't think I'm supposed to. We can still nourish our soul, and I think that's kind of the best way we can prepare ourselves right now for whatever comes next is to be fully nourished and satisfied and clued in to what matters to us, so that when we do need to start making decisions, we have that guidance already baked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting when we think about, pause. One of the things that I've taught for many years is mindful eating.
Yeah.
And, mindful eating can mean many things to many people. It's how you interpret it. But for me, a big part of it, there's a lot of elements that I consider to be mindful eating, but a big part of it is that pause before you make a choice, right? And it's just and I always call that, like, when we can do that, like take a few breaths or just pause and really think about, how is this going to nourish my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just eating it mindlessly and then kind of
Mindlessly.
having regret afterwards or not feeling well afterwards. But when we have that that intentional pause, I always
Yeah.
call that mindfulness in action,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
we're able to open that up. And well, so I hopefully this is okay to talk about. But you have part of your business is you send out like a pause box,
Yes.
a subscription, right?
So yeah, what I was finding is that women especially need a prompt, need a nudge, need a some kind of reminder to take care of themselves. And so I have what I call an altar bag. So essentially, it's a devotional practice for yourself that helps you tune in every month with a new card that helps you set an intention. It could be a journaling reflection. It's just a chance to really deeply listen to what it is you need right now. And I think the craziness in our lives happens because we're trying to escape the listening, and we're trying to distract from the true feeling. And it's always more nourishing and more settling if we just take a break, tune in, listen. And we listen in such different ways. I've learned that people have different listening superpowers. Mine is very much visual, so I can go into a visualization very quickly. I can do some body sensing. Some people write and journal, and they can hear kind of the words that want to come up. Um, I know people who go for walks, and that's kind of the only time they can tune in, because they have their body is moving. So the distraction is the body is kind of, and the mind is sort of being focused, and they're able to listen. Some people are able to meditate. I always meditate. Sometimes it's just rest for me, and I give myself permission just to feel rested. And then sometimes there's some big messages that want to come through. And I always have a notepad that I just jot down a word or a feeling or a reminder to, talk to somebody. It's really this beautiful, rich resource that when we tune into it, our life weirdly gets easier. And we never think that. We always think it's an extra thing we have to add, but it's actually something that streamlines the rest of our outer world, is when we're able to check into our inner world.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and when I got one of your altar bags, the pause
Yeah.
box, I was like, "Ooh, I wonder what's in here." And so I sat down and looked at everything, and I was like, "Okay, take a pause." And it was like, oh, I needed that reminder right then, and I just settled into a pause. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what you're really promoting, is to create that space. Like,
Yeah.
so, how would somebody get started with, maybe they're well, maybe they're thinking they don't have time for that much, but like, how do you say somebody start your pausing? How do you start?
Right. How do you do that? Well, so I want to answer your question, but at first I want to set the scene, because I think I want to describe something a little more familiar to people, and then kind of contrast that with what is possible. So what I think is more familiar with the way we pause, I call them the 4 types of pause. So the first one is the distraction pause, and we all indulge in distraction, right? We can do our social media feeds. We can do a good Netflix binge. I'm currently watching a fun season that I'm like, ooh. What we can, I mean, we can distract ourselves with a nice glass of alcohol. Like there's lots of ways we can, quote, take a pause from just the incessant thoughts and wild ideas that are constantly assaulting us. And that has a role to play. But it's not rejuvenating. It doesn't necessarily solve any of the underlying stuff, but it gives us a little break, right, from intense, say, work pressure, family pressure, whatever it is. The second type of pause is that pause I talked about when I took a break, that 1 year off where I would take naps. So like literally, I don't know how naps got such a bad rap, but I love to take naps. And I'm one of those people who thankfully can take a cat nap. So the whole day's not gone, just a little 30 minutes. And I'm like, down, power down, reboot, back up. And though it doesn't fix anything, so to speak, there's no like, therapeutic cure, but I feel like I have more energy, more focus, more balance, more just things are more accessible to me if I'm rested.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do spa days for something similar. It's not going to treat your big underlying issues, but it sure does feel good to pamper and nurture yourself.
Yeah, or getting to sleep at a decent hour every night.
Oh,
I mean,
so religious.
yeah, that's really where we need to, that's really the ultimate goal. Like the naps are awesome, especially if you need them, because there's something
Yes.
called sleep debt where
Yes.
sometimes you have to catch up, but
standard
because
cycles.
so much happens, that all that stress that we hold, so much happens when we sleep. We rejuvenate, we detoxify our hormonal system, the immune system is on, and when we don't get that, that's a major stress.
Yes, exactly. So we've got our rest, distraction, rest. The third one is this forced pause, and I think we're all now very familiar with what that looks like. We have all been forced a pandemic that has forced us to change the way our routines, the way we work, the way we prioritize, maybe even what is available to us to do. Typically it happens in a less dramatic way. It might be like, for me, it was my breaking of the whole right side of my body that I couldn't use, like the numbness, the fatigue, the weakness, not being able to hold a fork. So these kind of forced pauses are things that in our lives, they come up. We feel like we have no control over them, but they're there to really make us take stock and give us an opportunity to do different. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth pause is the pause that I talk about in the work that I do, and that really is a self-creative pause. So it's that intentional break. It's any activity you can do infused with the intention of listening, nourishing. So for me, a lot of my cooking is a ritual of self-care and pausing. Obviously, journaling, doing rituals and celebrating sacred objects, and anything that really brings in that. I tend more toward the mystical. I love the fact that I am part of this amazing world. I tend to see and glory in the way the sun hits leaves. So that awe, I think, is really part of that self-creative pause. And the creative part comes when you listen, right? So if you're listening, you're tuning in, you're getting clear. When you are clear on something, you have confidence to take action. And so my message is a little bit paradoxical because I love pause for pause's sake, but I think I really love pause because it does help you create the life you want. It's not just about checking out, it's about tuning in and then creating something beautiful for yourself, your family, your world. And that's how I regard pause. Yeah.
Layer on some of the benefits of when you pause like that. Number one, you're likely going from your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, into your parasympathetic nervous system, which literally is your gut instincts again. So you can listen.
Yes.
And, that right now, like in this time of this recording, we're in our shelter in place, and we're all thinking about how can I support my immune system.
Yeah.
And the one of the most important ways that we can support our immune system is, yes, eating healthy food, but getting good sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and still trying to maintain exercise
Yep.
and proper hydration. But it's also that calm that is going to allow the immune system to not be overworking on stress that's maybe perceived,
Yeah.
and just to allow literally the immune system, when we are in rest and digest, when we are in our autonomic nervous system, that is when the immune system is really balanced and able
Mm-hmm.
to do its job. And that's where we then have resilience, because if we're
Yes.
when if we get sick or when something happens, we need to call upon our stress response for sure. Like, we need to fight or flight, we need to deal, we need to talk to people, whatever. But when we're not in that space, we when we're not needing to be stressed, we want to be able to be calm and tap into that. And that way we want to be able to go back and forth. And, sometimes when people they maybe come from trauma, or they have PTSD, or they're just like in the corporate world like you were, and they're just this
Yeah.
like go, go, go. It's hard to come down. It's hard to like
Really.
have that balance. So it really is essential to practice it, right? Just like if I
Yes.
want to grow big, strong muscles, I have to work out. So I have to
Yes.
practice getting into that. So that's what that pause can really offer.
Yes. Yes. And so in that practice, I've found some kind of beginning steps, ways into pause that you typically may not think about. So, number one, especially for the females in the audience, really putting yourself on the list. So, this was so true for me, especially when the shutdown came and my entire family stayed in the house. And because I'm such a nurturer, my impulse is to always go external and take care of everyone. And so here they were everywhere. They weren't asking for it. It was just, that was my reflex. So I literally needed to set an hour a day where I would not attend to them. I would not attend to the household. I would not attend to the pets. I would not attend to anyone except me. And I didn't know what I would do with that hour. And not everyone has an hour, but I insisted on an hour because it takes me a minute to get into it and then kind of decide to get out of it. And I would just sit and I would go, what do you need right now? So, and then I turned this into something I do online with my community as a free Zoom call. So we literally get together. I called it practical pause, but now I'm going to call it permission to pause, because I think people need the permission just to do nothing. Or if they maybe like want to clean out a drawer, or maybe they've been dying to listen to a new playlist, or maybe they're writing cards to their friends, or maybe they're I had one girl who wanted to figure out what her new routine is now that she's not leaving the house, and she didn't, she wanted to be very intentional about it. So like there are all these things that we want to attend to, but we tend not to, because we either are comfortable in our distraction, or we're taking care of others, which is total distraction. By the way, all that busyness, very distracting. So just putting yourself on the list, giving yourself some space, and then really tuning in. What do I need right now? And just keep asking yourself that question. What do I most need right now? I may need to just lie down. I don't know why, but my body goes, yeah, just lie down. I may need to go outside and, look up at a tree. And I'm just allowing myself these days. I'm having a lot of fun just going, the weirder, the better. Like, what do you need right now? And just like, I'm not going to shut you down. I'm not going to censor you. You just tell me what you need. So a lot of it is moving, walking, getting out, feeling, noticing gorgeous plants, listening to beautiful music, doing a lot of dancing. So these are things that are not on anyone's list, but they should be. And if you take the moment to put yourself there, you'll find what that means for you
What do I need? What do I want right now?
right now.
Yeah. And it reminds me in Ayurveda a lot when we talk about, you know, sh- what we should eat. It's always like, who needs what when? Like, what do
Yeah.
I need right now? And it's
Yeah.
different than it might have been yesterday or in 10 minutes, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's the beauty of it. It moves. And so you get to learn your own language. And so that's what I'm slowly, at 50, I'm finally learning what my language is. And it's so nourishing to know how to hear myself. And I fall into old habits and ruts and need other people to help me out of them. But at least I have this commitment to build the muscle, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that has served me well. Yeah.
Cool.
And then the last thing I'll offer is I'm getting really into ritual. And I think the pandemic kind of underscores this, as the days blur together and it feels a little like Groundhog Day, like Bill Murray. You're like, wasn't I just here? Wasn't I just doing the same thing? There's something powerful about marking the time. And obviously the moon helps with that, and noticing moon cycles, noticing seasons, noticing the way the plants are blooming, which I know you spend a lot of time noticing all the time. But even like I have like a candle. It's a battery powered candle, and I consider it my bat signal. So when I turn on that candle, it means that I'm opening a direct connection to source, and I'm asking for whatever needs to come through me to do it. And I'm going to pay attention. So that's just like, I'm turning on my attention. And it's just a little candle. It goes on and then it goes off. And that's my time that I mark in that way. And that's a little easy ritual that we can all do and
That's
find
cool.
something for ourselves. Yeah.
Is that one of your 10 essential steps to a skillful pause?
Well, ritual absolutely is. Yes. The candle is optional. For some people, they'll have others. I've seen people put little Post-its next to their doorways as kind of a reminder,
Oh, yeah.
as you're going through, just check in.
Yeah.
Where am I right now?
Yeah.
I'm in this doorway. Okay, but what's happening in my body? So that can be a ritual. There's so many rituals. But yes, rituals, intention, awe, reflection, which is part of the listening. What else is in there? Yeah.
Cool. So if somebody wants to check out her 10 essential steps to a skillful pause, we'll have the information right down here.
Absolutely. It's kind of a DIY if you want to do it yourself. Pause at home might be more challenging if you have a full household, but you can always put a little poster on the wall and say, "Don't disturb. I'm here for 4 hours, and I just kind of want to hang out with myself, my thoughts, or go out for a walk, go in the backyard." They
Or all
won't
of the
miss you.
above.
They won't miss you. Yeah, it'll all be there. Movement actually is so important, and stillness as well. So yes, get your 10 essential steps. Start there, and let me know how it goes and how I can help.
Cool. Well, that's so cool. It's really so timely because we've been put into a pause, but I think we're all recognizing how important the pause is, even though there's a lot of things about it that are not good.
There are plenty. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but it's and it is a time too to look out at nature and see that the humans are pausing and nature is still going forward. And
Beautifully.
I guess that's one thing to
Yeah,
revel in.
absolutely. Yeah, it fills me with huge hope. And also this notion, and I'm no psychiatrist, but we've all heard of PTSD. But I just learned of a term called post-traumatic stress. But there's also such a thing as post-traumatic growth, and I
Oh,
love the possibility of that. And so for people for this is a big T trauma, and for people who it's a little T trauma, there is a chance to really find what you need out of it and use that to propel you forward.
I
So
love
hopefully
that.
lots of growth to come for all of us.
Yeah, it's all the mindset, right?
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
FOMO, JOMO.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
cool. Well, awesome, Meredith. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Yeah, for
My
being
pleasure.
here. And you can check Meredith's work out at her website at Pausebox
Oh, yeah.
Co. And I'll put the link on the bottom.
Perfect. I also have a new meditation. If you're more a meditation kind of girl, I have a one that I wrote about I am clear. And it's
Okay.
really a declaration about really tuning in and getting clear and harvesting the clarity that's already there. We tend to dismiss the wisdom that's already in our body. So yes, all that is at pauseboxco.com.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Vaish.
much. Yeah,
So good
thank
to see
you.
you.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too.